You hear a lot of great athletes say, how did you get here? They had to work hard.
Yeah.
They had to put in hours and hours every day in order to master their skill, to be the best at what they were. Had to. So is there a way to create effortlessness when you also need to work hard and be diligent in your practice and all these things? Or do we not have to work hard and it can be effortless in accomplishing what we want?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, to me, essentialism was about rethinking prioritization, what really matters, and figuring out what is essential. Effortless is a cousin to that, and that's about rethinking simplification, which is that sometimes we just make getting great results, breaking through to the next level, harder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
So it's not saying, hey, you should never work and you should never work hard and you should never put in effort. I believe that you're supposed to put in effort. The point is, if you can't work any harder, you've got to find an easier path. And yet in a grind culture, sometimes people start to get burned out and their answer is push even harder rather than think different, think smarter, find an alternative route.
Rather than take a pause, reflect, have a better strategy, it's more just go hard, spend more time, more hours on the thing, as opposed to reevaluate simplification.
Yeah,
so
that's what it is.
How can we do it more effortlessly in a simplified version, not just hard push?
One of the things I think that we can do is just, well, the book structure, the model is to have an effortless state, like 3 concentric circles: effortless state, effortless action, then effortless results.
Right.
And that's sort of like 3 books in one. Each of them can make your life and the results you get easier to get. You want to first remove all the complexity in your mind, in your heart, that makes life more frustrating than it ought to be. Just talking with Tim Ferriss, and I asked him a question about this. I said, look, how much of your mental and emotional energy have you given on stuff that, holding grudges, being angry, stuff that just got in the way of your success? And he said, look, from age 15 to 30, he said probably 60 to 70% of my energy was spent on that.
On...
Anger, being angry.
At what? Himself, other people, the world, anything.
And awful things that happened to him that he was angry about from when he was young. He's talked about this publicly now, of abuse that he'd been through and so on. But either way, he's making, his life is more burdened than it needs to be because he's spending so much of his cycles on this stuff that isn't actually propelling him forward or helping him achieve.
His thought process. His energy on those things, right?
Yeah,
spending a lot of the time.
That's right. Just your mind, what you're processing, how you're feeling is just burdened.
Burning energy
instead of getting you going forward.
Yes.
And so simplifying your state, I think, is a huge return on investment. If you can let go of a grudge, if you can let go of something that you keep on, draining you, then there's just more of you on offer. And that's not through grinding effort. That's through just removing burdens. You don't have to be hauling up the mountain at all.
Right.
The number 2 area is effortless action.
That's effortless state, the first area.
First one, effortless state. So you're simplifying all of basically all of that clutter that's in your mind.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier to focus on what matters.
Before we get to the second ring, how do people learn to let go of grudges?
Yeah.
How do they let go of resentment, anger, frustration about others and about the things they've done? And that's really hard to do. You seem like it's a simple, just let go. Just get clear mind. But, people have been trying to figure that out for a long time.
Yeah.
So how did you learn how to do that?
Well, one of the things that I've learned is that specifically on grudges is that we need to learn. We have to ask an unusual question about grudges, and that is, what did we hire the grudge to do?
Yep.
As Clayton Christensen says, with any product or service that you have, no one wants a 6 inch drill bit. What they want is a 6-inch hole, right?
Yes.
There's a reason that you're hiring that product or service. Well, you can do the same with grudges. Every grudge we hold for a reason. We've hired the grudge to do something for us. Maybe we hire the grudge to make us feel powerful. See, I am one up. I'm above that person. See, they did this bad thing. I'm holding on to that. See, I'll show that I'm superior. We hold on to it for a sense of superiority. Or maybe we hold on it because we like that we get to tell a story of being a victim. And people go, oh, yes, we get sympathy for doing it. Well, we hire grudges to do certain jobs. And what I think is that if we simply evaluate grudges, like we say, how are you doing in your job performance for me? Are you actually protecting me? Are you actually making me powerful? Are you actually getting people to build a stronger relationship with me? Or if you evaluate them, and in the book there's a section specifically, one by one you can do this, where you say, well, you actually find, well, actually it's not making me powerful, it makes me more vulnerable. It makes me vulnerable with everyone because I'm carrying this wound still and not letting it heal. Is it helping me to build relationships? No, if you pay attention, you notice that when you tell these stories, you kind of have to find new people to tell them to because people get bored of it.
Right.
And so you're not building deeper trust relationships. You're actually kind of wearing them out along the way. And you can go one by one to suddenly discover that this is like a bad employee. We have a grudge is like, you've hired them to do this. They aren't doing any of those things. They're using you. Grudges use you. They burn you up. They waste you out. They make you weaker. And so just through this process, you start to find like, I'm ready to fire my grudges, ready to be free of it so that I can actually recuperate whatever the percentage is, 60 to 70% with Tim. Maybe it's different for other people. Get all of that back. And we can start putting that into the stuff we really wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah, can you imagine? There's been different stages of my life where I felt like 10 out of 10 of positivity, of freedom of my thoughts from holding grudges or resentments or angers, and you feel like you're flying. And there have been many years in my life, too many years, where I've held on to resentment, anger, frustration, a lack of forgiving other people.
Right.
Where you feel like you're at a 6 or 7, maybe you get to an 8 for a moment, but then something triggers you and you're back into anger, frustration mode. And that really pulls me back into feeling tired, exhausted, drained, and burnt out. Typically not from the effort I put into my craft, but in the effort I put into my mind, thinking about the things I don't like.
Yeah, you basically made the case for why effortless state is the first part of the effortless model. I mean, that's it exactly.
Right.
Think of the language you used. You feel like you're flying.
Yes.
Is that not just another metaphor for effortless?
Yeah.
I mean, what would be more effortless than I'm flying? That's the idea. That's why, even though you would never think of forgiveness as a productivity hack, like maybe no one's ever written that. You know, the productivity hack you need is to forgive people in your life. And yet, what else can you call it if you could get back that much energy, that much of your own light and ability and capability? It's the best rebate available. There's a story that I came across in the research that I love of a man who was productive in his community. And then one day he saw what he thought was a piece of string on the ground, and it was a piece of string. He gets it. He's like, oh, I can put that to use. Puts it in his pocket. On that same day in the marketplace, someone else had lost a wallet and lost some money. And they thought that they had seen him pick up the wallet and take it. Accused him of it publicly. There was no way for him to prove his innocence. And so the word went out. This person has acted dishonestly, dishonorably, and so on. Now, at this point in the story, he has a choice. He can't prove his innocence, but he could have, in this moment, let go of the accusation, of the harsh judgment, and he would have suddenly had all that energy back to be able to get back onto, well, what can I do something about? How can I serve? How can I make a contribution? How can I be successful again? But he doesn't. He gets fixated on it. Everywhere he goes, he talks about it. He nurses the grudge. He explains, it's a piece of string. Don't you see it was wrong? A piece of string, a piece of string. People started laughing about this guy. All he ever wants to talk about is a piece of string. And it makes him ill. And on his deathbed, final words of the story, you know, a little piece of string, a little piece of string. And this is how the story goes. Now that is a fictionalized account, but it illustrates the point of where are you putting your mental energies. If we put them on grudges, if we put them on things that have happened, we wish they hadn't happened, or even on our own mistakes where we go, I wish I'd been different, and we're beating ourselves up for past mistakes. We're just putting tons of effort onto things that will exhaust us and burn us out instead of us moving forward to the things that really matter.
So would you say that the things in our minds will hold us back from an effortless state and getting the actions and the results we want is the things in our mind first?
Yes, definitely. There's a little story about that where I was staring at myself dressed head to toe in a stormtrooper costume.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm in a store of Halloween. This is an expensive suit. It's like a movie quality stormtrooper outfit. And as I'm staring back at myself in the mirror, like, should I buy this? I'm like, how am I even here? Like, why? For 30 years, without realizing it, I'd had this goal of buying a stormtrooper costume. Yeah. So when I reflect on it, it goes back to like when Return of the Jedi comes out. And my older brother says, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a movie quality suit? Wouldn't that be great? And I'm like this, 10-year-old kid, just amazed by this. Like, yes, that would be cool. Forget about it entirely. But here we are 30 years later, still pursuing that goal. It's still a part of me has been working on achieving this. Well, no part of me wanted that costume. I'm like, what am I even doing here? Let's get out of this. I don't want this costume. And it became like a shorthand. My wife will say to me now, like, if I'm pursuing something that she's like, I don't know, that has a certain vibe about it, she'll be like, is this a stormtrooper? And I think you can use that for goals that no longer serve you, but also for grudges that no longer serve you. Could be relationships that no longer serve you. Could be any mental clutter, any assumptions that are simply like that they were true to a point, but they don't serve you now. And one of those stormtroopers, I think, is the idea that any problem can be solved by working harder. That alone is a really limiting idea. It'll get you only to here. It won't get you to there. So it's a good principle as far as it goes, but then we need to invert that question. Instead of say, how can I work harder? We say, look, is there a more effortless way of doing this? And so as you rid your mind of this old paradigm, you open yourself up to a new option, a new question, and suddenly, I almost think it's almost like magic. There's so many cool options once you're free of the idea that anything worth doing has to be exhaustingly difficult.
Yeah. What was the thought process that stuck in your mind the longest, that was the hardest to let go of? That when you let go of it, life became more effortless? Whether it be in your relationships or your career or whatever it might be.
Yeah, one answer to that question is, well, I'll give you one answer though, which is that the work at what's essential needs to kind of be hard, drudgery, and then you've got separate to that play and fun, and that those two things are just two different categories.
Yes.
They don't have to be, but we often divide them up. And so we just have the fun and the play separate. But what if the essential things can be the fun things? What if you can make the things that used to seem like drudgery into like fun rituals?
Yeah, how do you make cleaning your laundry or mopping the floor or cleaning the toilet a fun, enjoyable experience? Or,
which is a specific example in my family, cleaning up after dinner.
Yeah.
So we have pretty good rituals around the actual mealtime. Like we actually eat together. I got 4 kids, and my wife and I, we'll do like, we'll do toasts for each other at the end of each day, and like what's gone right today. And we have some good rituals around this. But as soon as the dinner is over, my kids are just like gone.
They're like, see you on the phone.
Like, disappeared. Like they're like ninjas, man. They're just gone. It's like so silent. And like, where did they all go? Then I have the unenviable task of like, come back and pulling them all back. Where did you all go? And oh no, I've got homework. Oh, it's hard to argue with that. Go to the bathroom. Okay, that's hard to argue with. And it's just this cat and mouse game to get them back in. So I'm like, okay, how do we make it effortless? And so we divide up the chores. So everyone's got a certain part of it, right? Many hands make light work. And we trained them on each piece. And I'm like, okay, we're going to set this up. We wrote it all down on a piece of paper where everyone can see it. Okay, ready to start. What happens? Nothing.
Chaos. Yeah.
It is back to the same. They're gone. The next day, they're gone like ninjas again. And it wasn't until my eldest daughter, Grace, added just a particular kind of music to the occasion that it became like karaoke. There was like classic Disney tracks. It was, I mean, she's a teenager. She's just turned 18 now. But it's just like sing-along stuff that you can't not sing to, all kinds of music. And it turned it into just like a little party. Yeah. And even now, we'll start to do it. We'll have the same problems as soon as someone puts on the right music. You all do it, you play, and it's like that now. In fact, I didn't think people would believe me, but the other day I wasn't even helping them. Music got put on, everyone's doing it. I grabbed like 5 seconds of video and put it on Instagram just to like prove like it really is like that now. So the idea is, one of the ideas that's hard to let go of is that essential stuff has to be the drudgery. You know, the important stuff is just hard work. Some things are just hard. And then there's fun stuff, and that's play over here. But what if you make it? What if you combine those? What if you make essential stuff enjoyable? Well, then it becomes, relatively speaking, effortless.
And I would add into that and say, if you don't make the essential stuff enjoyable, then you will be burnt out.
Yeah.
Even if it starts out as like fun, like practice and sports for me, there were many different sports that I played growing up, and some of them I burnt out on because it started to become a job where it was only like, you got to show up to practice, you got to work hard. This is a business mentality now, and it kind of lost the idea of having fun.
Yeah.
When we're playing a game, but it's like the business of the game.
Right.
And you almost have to. So what could start out as really fun could turn into drudgery.
Right.
And what could be like this thing that I don't like could be this incredibly fun experience.
Yeah.
Based on the parameters you create for yourself. I was a truck driver for many months. I got paid $250 a week as a truck driver when I was about 22, 23 years old. And I remember being like, this is miserable. This was not fun. This was not, it was essential to just pay like for food for the week.
Right.
It was not like the path of my life.
Right.
But it was a season of my life. And I remember saying, okay, I have an opportunity here. Like, this is going to be happening for many months. I can either be in misery and pain for 6 hours a day driving a truck.
Right.
Or I can make the most of it. And I downloaded a CD with salsa songs, and I started visualizing myself while watching the road, but visualizing myself salsa dancing, because I was learning how to salsa dance at that time.
Wow.
And so I would imagine myself doing the moves and the dance and the steps and everything, and it made the time fly, and it made it more enjoyable.
Right.
I would also sing songs as well and just say like, okay, how can I make this fun? Even if people are looking at me like I'm crazy, singing along to myself. But that made it more enjoyable, where it wasn't like, I have to go to work and do this thing, but I had a great time and time flew.
I love what you're saying, and it really is sort of a lot of what I mean when I say effortless state.
Yeah.
Is it like, which is, there's nothing so hard that complaining and whining about it won't make it harder. Mm-hmm. So some things in life, once you decide, I'm going to do this thing, I'm dealing with this. This is a responsibility that's important to me. I'm taking on. Now you just have to decide, do I want to do it the hard way or the easier way?
Yeah, exactly. What happens when we complain, and why do we complain so much?
You know, I searched at one point when I was doing this research for like, just what are the easiest things to do in the world? Like just off the cuff, like what are the answers? And I remember that one of the first answers that people really agreed on was complaining is the easiest thing to do.
Wow.
So I thought that was very interesting. And I took on a little exercise myself with this. And I was like, okay, well, that's not a great state to be in. A complaining state is going to limit my creativity. It's going to make it harder for me to achieve. It's going to be harder for me to attract good talent and all the rest of it. So I said, okay, every time I complain, I'm going to say something I'm grateful for.
I read this in the book. I like this strategy.
Well, here's
really good strategy.
Well, I like that you like it. What I noticed about it was that
it didn't work.
Well, what I noticed is not that it didn't work. I realized that I complained a lot more than I realized.
Right. I read that too. How much were you complaining a day when you started that strategy?
I don't know if there's a number for it, but I just found I would walk into a room and I'd be complaining. I'd see my wife and, oh, how you doing? Well, this thing was a bit of a drag. That meeting took longer than I thought. And I'm like, why are you saying this? It's not even how you feel about your life. There's so many good things happening, but for some reason I was in a habit of just starting with a complaint. You see your kids, there's always something to complain about. Well, why are you on that? Why aren't you doing this? Why haven't you cleared this thing up? There's an endless variety of complaints. And what I noticed was that the more I complained, the more there was to complain about. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I introduced this new habit, what I was surprised by is how fast the state changed. Because you can't be grateful and complaining in the same moment. You can't be fearful and grateful in the same moment. You can't be angry and grateful in the same moment. I mean, it is a dynamic, powerful, catalytic thing. It's not just, for too long we think of gratitude as being like, well, that's a nice mindful man.
Right.
Be mindful and grateful over there. But when you got to do the real stuff, that's not the real stuff. Gratitude is the real stuff. This is the way to be able to accelerate success in any area of your life, and it's instantly effective. So I found that as soon as I would say I was grateful, I could see people's eyes light up, just even my kids, my wife, it just brought a more positive feeling. So then we carry on with our kids, and I'm like, okay, my son Jack one time, I'm like, he complained, and I'm like, okay, give me 3 things you're thankful for. He says this: I am so thankful that my dad wants to play this dumb game after I say something I'm complaining about, right?
Yeah.
He says it just like that. We all laugh. It works even though he did it with the worst attitude ever. And by the time he's doing 2 and 3, he's laughing and he's saying stuff, and it didn't matter. Gratitude is that powerful. And so I think it's like the fastest way to get ourselves back into an effortless state. And I learned about it first in the extremity of a family crisis. I found that this thing would help even in the direst of circumstances.
Really?
Yeah. It seems like I'm fully attacking this strategy in this book. And I'm just saying, it's just not the only one. There's another whole strategy. What if you just ask the other question? You might find that there is, in fact, another way to do training. You might find, just like the team you said,